Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Sir, Product Manager at Saving for College. And on behalf of the whole team here, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, where we'll learn how to analyze and appeal your clients' financial aid awards. Today, we're joined by college financing experts Joe Messenger and Peg Keogh of College Aid Pro. And this year, Saving for College and College Aid Pro have partnered to bring advisors deeper content related to college financing. So we'll be co-hosting webinars throughout the year on seasonal topics. We'll have the next one in May, so we hope you join that one as well. And be sure to check out Joe's monthly contribution to our Pro Update newsletter, which you receive bi-weekly. College Aid Pro has also been generous enough to offer you all a 15% discount on their robust college planning platform designed for financial advisors. And we'll send more details on signing up for that, as well as a recording of today's webinar in an email following today's presentation. And there will also be an opportunity to share any feedback you have, which we welcome. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe and Peg.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. And as you said, excited about the partnership today, as well as going forward throughout the year. There's a lot going on always in college finance, but particularly this year, there's legislative changes, there's terminology changes. So, obviously you're here because this is an area you take an interest in, be it saving for college. And we're really kind of this what's been deemed late stage college planning. So hopefully, we're able to provide some, some content, material, resources to help you, level up the college funding game. So we are here today for a specific topic, but, as we get in and talk about kind of our mission, as a organization at College Aid Pro, we really are on a mission to change the way America shops for college. We have a kind of a fundamental belief the way we shop for college really is pretty backwards these days. Oftentimes we're accounting for the past instead of planning for the future. So with college costs, rising the way they are, there's no doubt that the best way to pay for college is to save for college. But at the same time, we have to figure out how to understand how we actually get to and through this process. And then ultimately what that can lead to is us ending the student loan crisis one family at a time. And so those things combined, when you look at what we're going to talk about today, how to decipher financial aid award letters, how to have visibility into the future for our young adults, I think that's can help feed that mission. And we need your help, because our solutions are built, the advisor solution side, it's about empowering advisors with software, training, and support. So we know that those of you that show up for our types of webinars, obviously you're taking an interest, but oftentimes it's like, where do we go to get additional tools, resources? What is the source of truth here? So hopefully that's helpful for you. As Mark said at the beginning, we do have a discount program available through the Advisor Pro side of Saving for College. So hopefully you'll take some interest, because even as we go through this today, we're going to talk through high level how to approach, how to analyze a financial aid award letter, how to approach and understand if you've got a leg to stand on with appeals. But to do that, really having the tools to understand, like, is it something that we want to appeal? Is it worthwhile? So we're going to hit on some of those key things today and kind of our 5-point plan of attack that I think we've had a lot of success with. And then we're going to go through the mechanics, understanding the award letters, the mechanics of how to understand if you've got a fair award letter, how to appeal that letter, and then some real life case studies, both on a need basis as well as on a merit basis. So hopefully that's why you're here. And then, the whole thing with us is our tools are built to facilitate that conversation, because we know it's kind of hard to get through all the pieces of the puzzle. So again, my name is Joe Messenger, along with Peg Keogh, our Director of Education here at College Aid Pro. I don't want to have a soapbox too long, so I want to get into the content, but I will tell you that collectively, we've been working with families in this space probably over 30 years. We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of folks to and through this process. So I bring that up because it's not an academic exercise. We do work in the trenches. We work with families. And I think one of the things that keeps getting us out of bed is helping people make sure that they're getting as much free money for college as possible and paying as little as possible. I don't know if you would echo that sentiment, Peg.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just letting parents know, yes, you can do this. You can ask for more money. A lot of them don't even realize they can, and you're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. So
yeah. I mean, so hopefully, we're excited to do these webinars because just simply being able to facilitate this and help your clients and don't be intimidated by this. you should be numbers people, but understand most of our clients are not. That's why they hire us as financial professionals. But navigating this college funding thing has just become, it's really complex. There's a lot of nooks and crannies. There's a lot of nuance. So hopefully today, you take what you learned today and then you apply that, and hopefully it's helpful in your practice to really add tangible value. It's oftentimes difficult as a financial planner to continue to demonstrate value. And I feel like this piece, the financial aid, and now we're at the finish line where we can actually go to bat and help our clients go get even more free money for college. So this is how to analyze and appeal with colleges for financial aid. So we'll kind of dig right in. And like high level, the reality is colleges are a business. And I think if you have some insight into that, it's important, because if you talk about, you're going to go ask them for more free money, and the answer is yes. I mean, they're a business like anybody else. I equate the college experience today, if you understand, like it is so competitive for them to get what they call yield, which is the marketing funnel for them starts way out here. We've got 3.5 to 4 million kids graduating high school. We're actually in a birth slump right now. So there's less supply than there used to be. There's, so they've got to compete. And the estimates are over $1 trillion has been spent in the last decade on marketing college. $1 trillion over the last 10 years marketing college. And if you've ever seen their material, it's darn good. It's really good marketing material, and they will convince you, no matter what it takes, you should come here. So our job, again, on their side, they get the right kids in, the best possible kids in, have them pay as much as possible. Our job as consumers is find the best college for the best money and pay as little as possible for that college. And that's value, right? We're trying to find value. We're making sure we're not overpaying. And I can tell you that when we look at this from the schools and the businesses, they're trying to attract the best kids in, because as they get kids with better test scores, right, and they have kids that have better numbers, that increases their ratings, from all these different Forbes rankings and all this stuff out there. So understand, they absolutely work like a business. They're going to incentivize those that really can up their profile for the following year. So they're acting like a business, and they have to incentivize students that are at the top that maybe got accepted to better schools. So it's another thing I want to bring up. So when you're building this list and understanding, the way these schools operate, they have to package to compete. Particularly our small privates, we'll get into, but they have to package to compete with each other, and privates also have to package to compete with the state schools. So, it's not a one size fits all. I always say, like, every student going through this is a snowflake. So just understand you've got a lot of value to add through this process. So let's get into like understanding the offer. We've got a couple teed up that some are good, some I think could be more visible as far as transparency. So high level understanding the offer. We've got grants, scholarships, work study, and federal loans. So to unpack those a little bit for us, each one, at the top, grants and scholarships, that's free money. That's gift aid. That's money that actually reduces the cost of college for your family, right? 3 and 4, work study and loans, those do not reduce the cost of college. Important distinction. They disguise them as what they affectionately call self-help. And we have to help families understand when we get through deciphering these things, like these do not reduce your cost of college. So unpacking them a little bit at a high level, grants typically can come from federal, they can come from state, they can come from even local, and they can come from the institutions themselves, and typically in that order. Before they put their hand in their own pocket, they'd like to get any money out of any programs that student may be eligible for, but they're the ones that are distributing that aid through their financial aid portals. Okay, so those grants, you've got to apply. You have to have applied to be eligible for any need-based stuff. That's the blocking and tackling we cover in other courses. But those grants, you're going to have to qualify based on need, typically based on what they think your family can afford, what's called your expected family contribution. And then, like I said, just to understand, that can be awarded federal, state, and then pushed through the institutional awards as well. On a grant standpoint, some scholarships also are need-based. But like I kind of package it, like grants oftentimes are need-based, scholarships are oftentimes merit-based. So merit-based, I think scholarships, we think of the athletic scholarship is one key way. That's a very unique ability and skill. But the reality is less than 1% of student athletes from high school go on to get a penny of athletic money in college. Mostly what we're looking for, particularly for kind of mass affluent America, is who's going to give the most scholarship money based on academics. That's typically what we're looking for there. And then, understanding with scholarships, are they renewable? Are they 1 year only? Those are important distinctions to understand. Like with these scholarships, it's free money, but is it guaranteed if I keep my grades up? And we won't hit a lot today on the private scholarship side because this is more about understanding the award letter and appeals. We did a whole other program on just private scholarships. So understand this is institutional scholarships, and that's close to 90% of the money that's going out for free is from the institutions themselves in the forms of grants and scholarships. All right, so hopefully that's helpful in terms of how we hunt and find real money. Work study, it's not guaranteed. You have to qualify based on need, and it's an opportunity to work at the university. It's not guaranteed. Still got to apply, still got to get the job. You may be better off to go off campus and find a job. But the big point that we want to drill home, like in this particular case, is work study. That's not reducing our costs. So we kind of strip that out because we still got to figure out a way to pay for it. And if you do work study, is it actually going to go to offset your costs of college? That's an important distinction as well. If you go and you work on campus, do you actually put all that back towards tuition and room and board? And oftentimes that's not the case. So we got to understand, like, how does working during school actually play into meeting the bill? And then student loans, we couldn't have a conversation around paying for college without talking about student loans. So we're going to hopefully help you understand like what that appears, how that shows up in the financial aid award letter, and understand that about 90% of the loans out there are issued through the federal government themselves. So we talk about the direct federal loan, federal student loan program, often still referred to as the Stafford loan. They're subsidized and unsubsidized. So we'll walk through kind of how that's presented in financial aid award letters. The big thing with subsidized is that you have to qualify based on need, and you have to qualify based on need, and there's no interest that accrues while you're in college. So that's the subsidized version of the federal direct student loan. On the other side, there's an unsubsidized version that pretty much everybody can get as long as they filled out the financial aid forms. So it is a way to help pay for college. It does not reduce the cost of college. Hopefully that resonates with you. It is a way to help pay for college, but it doesn't reduce the cost of college. It just kicks the can. And then the Parent Plus loan. This is one that I'm really, as advisors, hopefully you leave today and go, gosh, that Parent Plus loan, we got to be really careful about making sure our clients understand that may not be the best choice for them. Because that Parent Plus loan oftentimes is represented as a way to just meet the rest of the unmet cost. So on a financial aid award letter, we'll look at your school costs $50,000. We've given you $25,000 in other aid. You've got an unmet cost of $25,000. Click here if you want to take a Parent Plus loan. That sound about right, Peg? Like, click here, you want $25,000?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get the Parent Plus loan, and they basically can give it for the whole cost minus whatever they've awarded and minus the direct federal loans and work study. And I've seen a lot of award letters that it all comes out and says cost to you $0. And that's where you step in and say, nope, this isn't $0. There's all this debt you're taking on. Your child has to work. So we'll look at some examples, but just like everything in this process, all the schools are different, right? How they present these award letters.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dig into some examples. So we'll look at this example award, and then also this is inside of the portal. So I would like to say we're going to look at 3 different schools here. This is nothing against any of these schools. These are some great institutions. The point is to help you understand how difficult it is to decipher and put these in an apples to apples format. Because when you look at these 3 examples we're going to provide, that's really what we want you to take away. And then also helping understand like how different they are, and then also where you can add value. You don't have to be the college expert to help somebody understand getting through and understanding these financial aid award letters. So just understand that it is complicated. So if it's complicated for us as financial planners, imagine you've got an artist and a chef, right? So imagine them trying to figure out how to decipher these things if they're not money people. We hear that all the time. So you can add value by simply just helping them understand these award letters. And I think it's time for us as financial advisors to stop saying we don't do that, right? So in this process, I hear this a lot. We don't do that. Like, you don't help people understand what kind of costs and interests and loans are going to take. I really encourage you to really think about, are you a fiduciary if you're not helping with this piece? Because this is a huge expense for these families. So just helping them understand, like on the left here, this is Lehigh. I think they do a pretty good job actually of kind of showing, like, here's your gift aid for the fall and for the spring. We have 2 semesters here. Here's your grant. And then the self-help, they list it out pretty clearly: subsidized, unsubsidized, work study, and then a loan there from the school directly. Right. So on this side, like, understand, like, actually the only thing that reduces the cost is that university grant. Right. So that $1,665 per semester, that's the only free money. But what they would have you believe is your total financial aid is $66.65. Right. So helping a family break through the noise, understand you're going to be taking out, each semester, there's some unsubsidized and some subsidized. So if you don't need all of the loan, don't take all of the loan. Right. I've heard story after story from friends of mine. And I hear this a lot. I'm sure you do too, Peg. Man, I wish I'd met you 6 years ago. Right. We hear it all the time. So, like, I just went in and it said, do you want the loan? And I said, yes. I didn't need it, but I wanted it because it said I had some money there. And I was like, oh, cool. Didn't even realize kind of what they're getting into. So if you don't need it, don't take it, and be careful about crafting a smart lending strategy. So in this case, understand, well, yes, let's take unsubsidized, maybe, but maybe we don't, or take the subsidized rather, but maybe we don't take the unsubsidized because that we are going to owe interest on. Right. So if you need it, but the subsidized version can kind of be a no-brainer. Right. So looking at that in terms of going, okay, gosh, that's $3,500. And we can take that loan. There's 0 interest while we're there at school. So we can then pay that loan off after school if we want. So understanding that is a smart lending strategy if someone qualifies. And then, what's the unsubsidized versus this Frank Williams loan? Do we need them both? Or do we need one or the other? Which one's better? Understanding the differences is important. And then work study, I really, these days, I mean, if people get work study, I'm usually of the mind of, like, let's just not consider that a way we're going to fund college. Because most people, if the kids do work during school, it doesn't actually, they put it in their pocket. It's for walking around money. It's not going to go back to the cost. So that's typically what I find. So we typically just kind of throw that out. But hopefully that's helpful on the left there to understand, here's kind of a nicely laid out letter. But when I say total financial aid, if you're a parent, you're trying to decipher, oh, cool, we only have to come up with X. But it doesn't show you, here's the cost. Here's what's left, right? That's one of the things I think this is not a great financial aid offer, because it just shows you your financial aid. It doesn't show you the cost versus what they're going to give you and ultimately your net cost. Because that's what we're trying to get to here is the net cost. Hopefully that's helpful. Just kind of, that's a financial aid offer, right? And then Lehigh on the right, this is inside of a portal, right? So inside of the financial aid portal. So a couple things to unpack. Most universities do the majority of their communication through their portals online. And to be clear, this is a portal for the student. This is not a portal where the parent has access unless they're explicitly given access. Right. So it's important to understand that students are communicated to through this portal as well as through email. And if you're not familiar, our young adults in this country don't check email very often until they get to college. So just understanding that, like, through this financial aid process, students should be checking email every day. So because any alerts that come, they're going to get them first, then maybe the snail mail comes with the same stuff. But some schools they've just gone to, we're only going to alert you via email and let you know it's available inside of your portal. So that's, some important pieces there. The student is 18. So in the eyes of the law, they are an adult, once they're in there. So once they go off to college, there's this kind of interesting thing where they're dependent in the eyes of financial aid, but they're independent in their eyes of, like, how they actually get dispensed a lot of their financial aid. So just to understand that that's kind of a gray area. Just so you understand, the reason that is because there has been a lot of downright fraud from parents that went in and took money from their kids and it never helped them pay for college. So not a great story.
There's opportunity to create, they ask the student just create a third-party login. But I want to just interject one other thing, because there's tons of confusion around this. You'll notice in Joe's letter on the left I'm not going to move my thing because it's not going to show you anything, but look in the right top, it says Office of Financial Aid. So the financial aid award letter comes from the financial aid office, and it's the whole package. This one doesn't show any merit aid. I have parents come to me all the time. I have the award letters, Peg, we need to meet. And then we hop on. I'm like, this isn't an award letter. Office of Admissions will offer a merit scholarship, and they might do that when they accept the student. They might do it a couple weeks later. That is not a financial aid award letter. That's just merit aid with the college already starting to discount their sticker price. And they don't really care the family's financial status, if they're making a lot of money or unemployed. So just realize that too, when you're working with your families, make sure you're really clear. Are there loans on there? That's a great question, because most colleges are going to put these direct loans. And if it's just a scholarship, the Provost scholarship, it's most likely not the final financial aid award letter. And these don't come out in November, right? So if parents say, oh, I've got all that stuff, I'm ready to go, they're not looking at the right document. So they need to understand that information comes from admissions and financial aid, and financial aid is the final award letter.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Forget about some of the nuance of this, because we're going to hit on some other financial aid award letters, the full award letter, because that's right. This is a financial aid offer. It's not the financial aid award letter, because the award letter includes all aspects.
Hopefully.
And yeah, as you'll see, it's a little confusing. And on the right, you have this opportunity, and I mentioned it, like, just because you're offered student loans, this is a different family, by the way. This is just the same university, but a different family on the right, a different student. So, for the academic year, you're offered, accepted, declined, canceled, total. So in this area, like, we've only accepted in this case, we just want the grant. We don't want the student loan. That's just important to understand. You don't have to accept everything that's offered. So I guess that's kind of the point there. And to bring up that point around data security and sensitivity and all that stuff around the student. So that's just hopefully a high level example of the financial aid offer. And then we'll get into, this is kind of more of a full financial aid award letter. So you can kind of read through this, but you can see just how different some of these are going to look. Compare this one to the next one and you go, wow. So University of Chicago is one of the most expensive and prestigious universities in the world. They operate on trimesters. So let's thicken the plot even further, right? So there's not a ton of them left, but some schools still operate on a trimester. So we've got to still, again, just break through the noise. And I think if I'm looking at this award letter, I'm sitting there going, okay, this actually does help me understand at the top your estimated financial aid for 22-23 academic year. And this is true scholarship gift aid money at the top, right? So it's really showing us, hey, here's our line by line, here's the different things we've been awarded. And you'll notice, like, scholarship is listed at 0. This one is mostly all grant money. I think even the scholar award is. But the bottom line is breaking through to say, let's make sure, is this 43,332, is that all free money? Right? Let's ensure that is the case. And then they kind of line out here, here's what this grant is, what this scholar award is, and then what this recognition thing is. Scholarship funded by the U of Chicago, recognition of your achievements and selection through College Board's National Recognition Program. So it kind of helps understand, again, here's the free money we're going to give you for the 22-23 academic year.
And those descriptions are not typical. They're not typical. And it's very important that you, as an advisor, understand what is a grant and what is a scholarship, because as Joe said, scholarships, the merit, that's almost always for 4 years, as long as the student maintains a GPA, but it's sometimes the colleges switch around the terminology. And if you assume something is merit and it's not, and then financial situations change and you lose it, when you're laying out that 4-year plan for your clients, which both of us strongly recommend for a lot of reasons, which even goes back to the loans where Joe said you don't have to accept them. And I tell people, make sure you've got your 4-year plan before you decline taking direct student loans, because they're the best loans out there, best interest rate, fixed rate. So I digressed a little there, but just keep that in mind. It's really important. If you don't know, the family should reach out. If you're helping them, reach out, ask that question so you know it's merit and it's for 4 years. There's a few out there that might just be freshman year. Outside of Seattle, we have a couple schools that's just freshman and sophomore year. that's vital information to understand so that people really can lay out their college funding strategy for 4 years.
Yeah, and we will kind of in my example, I'll hopefully show, here's how you do that once you get down to the finish line. So in this case, so here's the something to point out. When you get this award, you go, oh man, they're giving us $43,000. Like, okay, but where your mind should go is, what do we still owe? Like, because there's this fascination. People get back this award, like, man, they gave us 25,000 in scholarships. You're like, yeah, but it's still 55,000. Do you have 55,000? Because I don't care what the discount is. I care what you actually have to pay, right? Because in this, what I feel like they've done pretty well here is down here at the bottom, they've shown you, here's your free money, but here's what we're gonna be billing you directly: tuition, room and board, a couple little service fees, etc. And then so estimated direct costs after your scholarships and grants. So they're going to take all these added up, subtract out this 43. You need to come up with 36,594. So that is what you begin to say, how do we strategically pay for that 36,594?
Plus the indirect costs that they're not sharing on here.
Yeah. So indirect costs, we'll hit on those, Peg, if you can. Like,
so the indirect costs, like, to me, the ultimate best award breaks out the direct like they do here, and then the indirect, and gives a total so that the parents, the families understand. Indirect is books, travel, plane fare, whatever that is. And they usually have a line item that's personal expenses, which sometimes is fluff and you can pull it out when you're helping your families. But books is not fluff, and travel is not fluff, especially if they're not hopping in a car. So that can add several more $1,000s to the cost.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. So, and then that's an important thing too. Like, they're going to show you their indirect costs, but like, you got to think, like, what is this actually going to cost us? If we need to budget, if we're going to use Chicago when we live in LA, we need to be budgeting in. How many times do you think we're going to go back and forth? How many times are we going to go visit? How many times is the student going to come back? What's that cost? I mean, it's not necessarily a college cost, but in a sense it is, to understand, like, if you're going to be doing that 8 times a year, you need to budget for that $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
In
the university, but you're paying it.
That's right. It's going to come out somewhere. So staying local. So hopefully this is a, very different example. Again, it's a trimester and they're showing you the free money, but ultimately I do like the way it gets down to, after your scholarships and grants, here's what you're going to need to pay. But as you can tell, like, I think this is still done in like Microsoft Word or something like this. It's amazing that, like, you're going to charge somebody over $80,000 to come, and you're using this system that has no kind of graphical presentation to it. So, but again, very different look, as far as that, the award, the aid offer versus the financial aid award letter. And, it just, again, they're all created differently. And then so on to another one is just a very different way to look at the aid offer, right? So they're, starting from the left over here, they're going to go the college financing plan offer. Okay, haven't heard that one before. Not recognized in any of the other ones I just looked at, but here's what we're looking at. I like how they show on this one. Here's your tuition and fees. Here's your room and board. So at least we know your direct costs are here. So I do like how they just put that right up front, because that's, to me, this is, so I'm trying to compare and contrast these for you, because, like, to me, it's like, okay, at least that gets us out of the gates here. We know what it costs. And then let's understand, what are the grants and scholarships to pay for college? And this is actually, I think, pretty well laid out. They got some Pell grants for this family. They got some state grants, and then they got some other grants, right? So kind of in that order, typically, federal, state, and then institutional, or other forms of grant aid, bringing it down to total grants awarded for this family of over $19,000. And then over here, the ones with circles, we actually put those in because over here it shows, here's your total direct costs, here's your grants and scholarships. And then we circled this, we put in, like, all I need to know is, what are the direct net costs, right? And then down here, they sneak it in. Oh, by the way, there's indirect expenses, right? So here's your indirect. So you add all those into Peg's point: books, supplies, transportation, other education costs of over $7,100 per year. So if you're looking at UChicago, that's not in here. It's probably another $7,000 or $8,000 that you need to account for, right? But in this one, at least they give us an idea of, like, hey, look, actually the total estimated cost of attendance It's not 3215. That's direct costs. When you pack in all of the indirect costs, it's over 39,000. So 39,000 versus minus that gets us to a net cost of 20,249. Right. So that's that's really these circles, like I said, they've provided these on the left. We plugged in some of these on the right because that's really what you're trying to get down to. And this right here, this exercise, I think that of the three, this one probably does the best of articulating what it's going to cost, what's direct, what's indirect, and then ultimately what's the cost, what's our grants, what's our net cost. Because again, that is the ultimate that we need to figure out to be able to compare, contrast, and appeal. So hopefully, and I think this one's probably the best one. And then it gets into what are our options to pay the net costs. I also like that format. Say, okay, to pay those net costs, we do have some things available in the form of work study. We have these loan options over here. So again, I think they've done probably the best job of kind of clearly laying out, here's what this is actually going to cost. At least on a 1 year basis. On a 1 year basis, I think that's important because two things. Number one, there's this the people romanticize. Oh, they gave us $30,000 for free, and like, well, okay, it's still going to cost 50. So do you have 50 per year? And it's not just 1 year, by the way. It's 4. Right. So understand this isn't. We don't go to college for 2 years. We need to understand how to pay for all 4 years of college down to the penny, including the loans and the resulting student loan payments. And then also, what are you going to make? So that's another, important factor when we're going through how do you actually pay for the thing. That's extremely important. So any comments there, Peg, on kind of this award letter?
No, I agree with you. They have all the pieces here, and it could be a little bit better laid out, but it's the best of the three for sure.
Yep.
Your little circled items make it much clearer. So without that, it's a little bit more daunting. You have to realize too, as parents get to this point, they've been through building the list, their kids applying, financial aid forms. They start getting in and they're like, yay, we're done. And it's like, nope, you're not done yet. So that's just, if any of you guys have kids, I've been through this. Some of you probably have, or you're about to go through this. It's an emotional process and you're dealing with teenagers. So they're getting toward the end, but they're not as enthusiastic as they were, at the beginning of this whole thing when their kids were juniors. So I think they have, less bandwidth to deal with all this stuff. So it's great to be able to step in and guide the parents at this point.
Yep. And again, like if you're a financial planner, like just helping them decipher this, you're adding a ton of value. We've talked in our prior sessions, like in the fall, just help them organize and make sure that they're plugging information in the right way in the financial aid forms to give their child the chance for the best opportunities of financial aid, and make sure they're just plugging things in right. And then on this piece, just help them decipher and then compare them on a side-by-side basis. And we'll show you how we do that in our technology here in a bit. So we'll shift gears from there because I think hopefully that illuminates how just kind of disjointed that financial aid is. It financial aid offers a full financial aid award? What about direct costs, indirect costs? There's all these terminology. What about unmet costs? So hopefully that just helps you understand just kind of how kind of disjointed, kind of unparalleled they are. So getting things to an apples to apples again is the key. And then from there, you're trying to say, okay, so we've got all these offers. If we can put them together on a side-by-side basis, how do we know if they're fair? From a high level, we're wanting to understand, did we get the amount of need-based financial aid that we should have qualified for and that historically they have given? And then also on a scholarship side, based on our academics, based on other people similar to us, have we received a fair award that's good for us based on a scholarship? So we'll talk on the need side. We'll talk on the merit side. We're going to go through some very concrete examples. But I think I want to just from a merit scholarship standpoint, understanding, did we receive a fair award is one piece. And then do you have something to compete and compare against is the other important piece. So the ability to appeal really starts back in the application process. So come August, you're applying to schools. You may have schools you apply to that you don't actually have an interest in going to. The reason is because if we want a leg to stand on from a competitive standpoint with merit scholarship, you do need to have built your list in a fashion that says, I may have schools that I know are going to potentially give me great awards, so that my top choice school, I can use that as leverage. So just understand it's an important piece of any negotiation. You got to have other awards. And then from a need standpoint, you have to have filled out all the financial aid forms. And we'll talk about, how you need to appeal if things have changed. So I think on this piece, Peg, I can, if you want to go through this one, if you want to just kind of run through, this might be like, should we appeal? Is it a waste of time? Won't they take my aid award away?
Sure. No, they won't take your aid award away. They won't rescind admission. So I'll tell you that. And parents don't realize that. So basically, not everybody should appeal, right? The times when it makes sense, first of all, private school versus public schools. You can appeal to public schools, but if you don't have good grounds for appeal, you don't have income that was inflated that you can explain to the colleges why it was there and they can back it out, or you didn't have to shut down your business because of COVID, or, if you don't really have any reason, it's going to be a much bigger hill to climb with the state and public colleges. Private colleges are very different. And as Joe just mentioned, you can bounce peers off each other and they'll match or try and match, if depending their yields and all this internal stuff that's going on at the colleges. So private college in general is better. With COVID, there's been massive opportunities, right? People had to, got laid off, shut down their business, all this stuff we've all been living through. If you took a retirement distribution, I've had some people that took hardship distributions, and you need to reach out, document that this was used for this or that. Divorced, separated, remarried. This happens all the time. It's prior year. So it's a 2-year look back. Some people were happily married and they no longer are, unfortunately, right? That's a huge opportunity to reach out. It's not a time to be shy about financial problems, right? That's when you want to be very open with the colleges. Business owners, certain colleges really dig into those returns and take away certain allowances. So it's just, that's another key group of parents. You probably have them as your clients that they could appeal. And then also, as Joe mentioned before, if you've got competing offers and if you strategically set up a list so that you might have some, that's a great strategy. And there's a right way to do it, but those are all good candidates. People that say to me, yeah, but that real estate, that's for retirement. The colleges don't care if and when these people retire, right? That's your job to help them retire when they want with the nest egg they need. It's not the college's job. The colleges will wow them with all this lovely marketing that they do, and to their kids, right? So you guys can step in and kind of be this rational force in this relationship, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's kind of like at a high level two ways to approach this. The one is a special circumstance appeal, as most of these things we call. So your income was impacted. You had to take a one-time retirement distribution because you need money. And then another one that came up over the last couple of years, because like these kids going off to school 22, 23, 2020, difficult year. Some people got laid off and they got a big severance. So it looks like 2020, they had this big chunk of cash, and they did. But you have to communicate, yeah, I did get a severance, but then I was unemployed for 9 months. The financial aid forms don't tell that story. In my experience, most schools they do want to get the right amount of aid to the people that deserve it. So, having a compelling argument, and really just, they do want aid to go to the right kids. They do want to package up, and a lot of them are very generous. I actually thought it would go the other way with some of the, the disruption of COVID, but I actually saw it go actually to be even more generous and more willing to consider these, because again, they've got to keep these kids enrolled. And they were saying, hey, we're going to charge you 60 grand to work from your parents' basement. In some cases. So they had to be a little bit nimble in figuring these things out. So I think we'll hit on some of I put some things in here I'll include in the slides, but I'm not going to go through these every line by line. Because I think it's we can kind of tell the story and kind of like creating a plan of attack, and then get into our case studies. So if you want to appeal, the one, bring color to it, bring some background, and then with that, find your advocate. So what I mean by that is one of the first things I think about, like, who can go to bat for you at the school. Have you talked to an admissions counselor? Have you met with somebody in financial aid? Have you attended a camp at their college? Do you have some contacts there that can help you say, this is why you're your number one choice? And FYI, the schools track every contact point you make. Do you follow them on Facebook? Do you follow them on Twitter? How many times have you visited campus? What did you have for lunch when you were on campus? Like these things, this is real stuff.
Clicking on links and emails. It's all demonstrated interest, and some colleges follow it. Well, you got to think about it. If they're going to give you more money, they want to feel like you're going to come, because if they part with another $4,000, but they get 50 in net revenue, that's a win for them. But they dial this in with algorithms, and it's all about that. So that's why you approach them in a certain way, and you coach your families to behave in a certain way, show demonstrated interest throughout the process, especially if there is interest, right? It makes sense to learn about the college too. So.
Right. Yeah, you really do. And so, there's just success around that. So is it a game? A little bit, but that's a game we're playing, and there's a lot at stake. So finding that advocate, bringing some color, especially if you've got an extenuating circumstance. And then the other part of that too is it's important to understand you want the student to be doing most of the conversation. You want the student to lead this charge. They may not be comfortable with it. That's where we can step in, help them with some language, help them, really approach that, and then backfill that with maybe some parent ammunition behind it. So, having the student, but the students kind of got to lead this. They've got to really want this. That's an important piece. And then another one is asking for a specific amount. Just saying we want more money isn't really very compelling. So, I'm going to show some examples, but if we could get an additional $15,000, that would really improve our odds of coming to your school, because it makes it in line with the affordability of other schools we have great offers from that are comparable.
Yeah. And part of the reason to do that too is then the college knows where the parent's head is at. Because if the parents don't put an ask, or they ask for too much, then the college just says, we have no idea what they want here. So they're guessing. And if another equal, like on the bubble student is putting in an appeal and there's a definite ask, and like, all right, we can do that ask. They don't know what those parents are really thinking and wanting. So it's always good to ask, and you got to make sure you don't ask for too much, because then they'll just say, forget it. We're not going to do anything, because we're not going to meet 20. We maybe would have given them 10, but mom and dad aren't going to be happy with 20. So we're going to give that 10 to another family. So there's just a lot that goes on there.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, it's understand, like they're sitting in an office going, do we need to offer them more money? Do we have the dollars to offer? Do we have a budget? And I can tell you that they do. They're expecting these, especially the small privates. They have a budget for this type of thing. So that's another piece to understand. And again, from a high level, as we said before, they're not going to take away your admissions. They're not going to take away what they've already offered. We're just asking, can we get to some additional? One thing I will say, if you're asking for additional need-based financial aid, high level, is that goes to the financial aid office, and that financial aid office is going to require a tax transcript. Tax return won't do it. So if you have a case where there's extenuating circumstances around income or divorce or something like that, go ahead and request that transcript right when you file your financial aid forms in the fall.
I actually tell all the families, just get it, because if you get verified, which is another part of this process, you're going to need it anyways. And parents freak out when they get verified because they think they did something wrong and it's all going to blow up. And it's like, no, it isn't. You've got your tax transcript. That's what you need to send them. So just proactively have your families get that. It's free, and then just throw it in the college file. You're good to go.
Yep. It's kind of heading things off at the pass, which is, that's what we try to do. So the financial aid office, that's where we appeal for additional financial aid. The admissions office is actually where we ask for additional scholarship. So if it sounds nuanced, it's because it is, but it's very important to understand, if you're looking for more need-based aid and considering a special circumstance, that's going to go through the financial aid office. And that's what Peg's going to go through as she worked with financial aid office. And the case study I'm going to go through is more on how we worked through the admissions side and helping get competitive appeals for competing packages. So Peg, I think it's probably a good time just to kind of let you dig in on the need base, and then I'll backfill with the scholarship.
Sure. And just one little thing I want to add to what you said, Joe, and this is more, I've been through this. I have twins and I've been through it. There are admission reps that cover areas, like ours would cover Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Idaho. And these reps come to the high schools. Now that everything's opening back up, they come and they speak, and the kids can get out of class and go to these. Talk to your parents, your clients about this, and say, have your kids go to these things. These people can be the first read on an application. It's all different. They don't all do it the same way on the application side, but it's also a face to a name. And if they do optional, which to me, they're not optional, interviews when they're in town, again, all of that helps with admission. So as Joe was talking about having an advocate, when you want to appeal for a merit aid, if you know that person, you can reach out and say, how does this work? How do we navigate this? So that's just a side, more of parent advice from parent to parent here. Okay, so let me just tee up this family. So the son applied early decision, which is the earliest deadline, and it's binding unless you can't afford it. And the parents had worked with me with their older daughter and then did their son, and then came to me and said, we don't like this offer, doesn't make sense. So they had gone to the net price calculator. So all colleges are required by the federal government to have what's called a net price calculator. We have software that's basically a net price calculator and exponentially more robust, and it's good, right? Some of the schools don't have good calculators. They just met the requirement. And so they actually hide them in their websites. They don't love having them at all, right? They'd rather not have that transparency. So they did go to the net price calculator, and it said one thing, and their award was not as good. So let me show you their award. This is a school, Santa Clara in California. So now that we've seen awards, and you guys are all experts, right? We look at this, and this is the first thing. The first thing I did is I looked at the award. Well, the first thing I did is I made sure they made no errors on their FAFSA and their CSS profile, which are the two financial aid awards. So as their advisor, you would have walked them through that step ideally, so you know those were submitted correctly. But I checked on it because I wasn't involved in that part. They were good to go. They didn't make any errors. They don't have any changes in situation. So I'm getting, there's no financial, layoffs of jobs. So now I'm looking at the award and I'm going to analyze it. So basically 9,600 of the free money. The colleges will consider this 3,500 of work study and 3,500 of the subsidized loan that Joe is talking about as meeting need, because the government pays half the hourly wage here, and the government's eating the interest until 6 months after the student graduates. You can argue that if you want, that's just the way that they look at it. But I'm looking at how much need are they meeting and how much of it is with the free money. And all colleges release this information. It's self-reported, and we, in our software that advisors use, we provide this information. So it's very easy to go in and say, and that's exactly what I did. I went in and I said, okay, how much need did they meet? Is this a good offer? And it was not a good offer. And I knew it when I kind of looked at it. So what I did, and when you get comfortable with this, you can do this. I said, hey, let's call up Santa Clara. So the three of us, they scheduled a call. I jumped on with them, and I got a gut check from the woman that I spoke with about what was going on. And she shared a few things with me that I kind of already knew, but again, I was getting a gut check. And then we hung up. And what I did is I counseled them. I said, this award it's 15,000 shy of really what they could be giving you in the need-based grants, right? And I said, what can you afford? What are you okay with? And they said, if we get another 10,000, we would be okay. I said, okay, that's what our ask is going to be, because it's less than the number. So I don't think it's going to scare them off. So what I had them do is, and Joe mentioned this earlier, I had their son write a little email, and this is where you get touchy-feely, right? And this was honest. This was his number one school. He applied early decision. Like, he really wanted to go there. Number one school, I had him, I said, hey, just have him write an email, including this stuff. He wrote it, sent it to me. I reviewed it. I have it up here. It was very, very short and sweet. Nothing, my name is blah, blah. I was thrilled to get in. I first saw, he first went on the campus when his older sister, and he said, I want to go here. How much does this cost? I'm like, any little cute little story that really shows them. Obviously the kids got interest, he applied ED, but they know mom and dad can walk, and they know their offer isn't that great, right? So they know that they could walk because they're not really meeting their need. And then, thanks so much, I can't wait. But he mentions attached to this email is a letter from my parents about financial aid. So then I always tell the parents, you write up your letter and then have your child reference it in their email. So the kid is leading the charge, right? And then mom and dad, I said, make it into a PDF and attach it, and then get into whatever your ask is. And so their letter is a little bit longer, but basically you always want to end and start, thank you so much for this offer. My child can't wait to come. We're so excited. They're the Broncos to join the Bronco community. So there's a psychological component to this. The colleges want you to feel like you're going to come. And so they reference, we have an older daughter. She goes to Pitzer, expensive private school. They want to mention that they are lawyers, but they're nonprofit legal aid attorneys. So they're not partners, right? It shared some stuff and then said, our ask is 10,000. This will make this affordable for us. He will come. And basically they responded and said, you've got your 10,000 and it's good for 4 years. So that's a $40,000 increase in their aid. Mom and dad felt great. They've got their 4-year plan and they know how to pay for school. So that's how I approach the need-based side. And again, this is all to financial aid. You don't necessarily have to call them. I just like to do that sometimes because I want to get a gut check on what's going on. But that's not a must do. Sometimes parents will do it on their own. These parents really wanted me, they really wanted me to do it. So that's how I handled it. And it worked out well. And they were elated, obviously. So
Yeah, that'll do it. Showing people that much money and making the dream school possible. I mean, it really, at first glance, they're like, gosh, there's no way to make this happen. Then you made it reality. So it's pretty cool, I would say. Yeah. And then again, like understanding like that context around this isn't as good an offer as they would typically get, because, one of the things you think about with college is like, and one of the things we're trying to create is as we get more financial aid award letters from schools in real time, we are creating, kind of what did other students like me get? And that's an important piece of the puzzle, is like, it really, like, not just averages, but what did other people like me actually get? So let me go ahead and share screen. So this is a really talented student. So, this is a merit appeal. We had a really talented student that came through a couple years ago, and they built a really good college list. And that started with, how do we know which schools are going to compete for our student? So these are 5 private schools. A couple of them, RIT was not on the original list, but I encourage to add it. This is actually a communications major. So one of the things you'll see in here is like, this is inside of the College Aid Pro system, which, we help understand what schools think you can afford, how to create your budget, and all the way down how to manage this whole process through schools, applications, awards, and then on to how to pay. So that's for this, we are at the finish line. We're trying to say, what do these schools offer us, if anything, and then what's our remaining cost? Money was really no object for this family. I'll tell you, this is a pretty high net worth family that could write the check, but I can also tell you that they didn't want to overpay. They love this idea of like, how do we go back? We've got a blue chip student in a sense. And how do we appeal for more dollars? I'm really interested in that. That's what got them into being a client in the first place. And this is a, $5 to $7 million client. I mean, this is somebody that came to us for college planning, but we're doing a lot more than that for them now. Oh boy, I just clicked and closed it. So I'm going to open that back up here in a second. So let me stop share. I'm just going to open that window back up. Did not mean to do that.
Yeah, I can just share another quick thing while he's doing that. Like, I'm working with a family now dad is disabled since 2020, they're appealing, and he's sitting on $1.5 million, right? That they're looking at to pay. So of course, he has no need. And I said, yeah, but your situation is dramatically different. So he crafted an email and a letter. I mean, they're expecting him to pay 24% of his nest egg. He's 50, he will never work again. And he's on Social Security disability. He shouldn't pay anything for college, but I counseled him through this. So there's people with high net worth that need this help. They're out there.
Yeah,
And
100%.
they could be great clients, on the asset management side as well.
Thank you, Peg. I am almost back to where I was originally. So yeah, bringing context back into this particular one, I meant to max out, not to close. I'll get back into the share. Here we go. So in this case, we're down in the awards section. We had, these schools, Elon offered nothing, Syracuse offered nothing. These other schools came with significant scholarship offers, bringing their net costs way down. And if you'll see, like their sticker prices are all pretty high. Elon, they would always say like, yeah, we are, but our sticker price is lower. We're like, yeah, but we're going to be paying, significantly less with each of these schools. So when we went back, just like we were talking about, we'll provide these in some of our stuff, but like this is the actual language we used. So this is a top student coming from the student. Here's what we presented to the communications school. He actually knew the dean. He had a great visit. It was not awarded anything. I prefer to come to Elon, but my award at least $8,000 more to make it more affordable for us. And I'll commit. So, and then again, the parent did something similar, put some color around it in the backdrop. So with Elon, they actually came with two different separate scholarships. My pleasure, offer you this $5,500, $22,000 over 4 years, as well as a $4,500 on top of that. So $10,000 plus some one-time experience. So all in all, this ended up being an $11,000 more, averaged over like $11,000, $44,000 in package over 4 years is what that created. So, if we go back in, now we can go in and say, okay, here's what we're really looking at. We have merit scholarship of 11,000. Hopefully that worked. Need another zero. So that's bringing our net cost down. That's bringing that within play because we had these other offers to share. So that gets that in line with these other offers. And then Syracuse is historically known for being pretty stingy with financial aid, any appeals. So we went back to Syracuse and we actually asked for 15,000 was our appeal to get it within range. They didn't come with 15,000. Guess what they did do? They came back and they offered us 5. So, these are the real case. So at the end of the day, now we've got a $5,000 scholarship. And again, for this family, the money wasn't necessarily the object. They could pay it. But when we look at these now on a side-by-side basis, now we've got true transparency into what school is going to cost what. And that's the important thing for this family they're wanting to understand. So they ultimately choose Syracuse, and where that plot thickens a little bit too. We actually said, we will come, and would you consider, what will you do if we pay for all 4 years today? And that also comes with guaranteed no tuition hike. So ultimately that ended up saving about another 5% off of the total cost. So all in all, this is a client that was pretty thrilled. We got them 11,000 here. Ultimately, they made their choice. That's for them to make. Then from there, to Peg's point, the next evolution, we understand here's exactly what we're going to pay. Then people got to figure out how they're actually going to pay. And that's really the power of like when we get into like our different tabs and what we have. Like if you actually want to pay for Syracuse, we got to come up with 277. So how are we going to do that? We know our discount, but like let's help. Like what's the budget here? I mean, what do we have in 529s, parent assets, cash flow? So this is really getting into, again, like if we have this delta, how do we pay for it? And I think that's probably one of the next webinars we'll do is really how do you dig in, create budget, help people understand. But hopefully, as far as like how do you compare, appeal from a financial aid standpoint and a merit standpoint, hopefully this has been a good, hopefully high level view of each of those and kind of how to get through that process. And I'm happy to take questions. And Peg, I don't know if you have any closing comments. And I
Yeah, we
apologize
just
for
had
the
a couple
little text.
questions that I thought were easier to answer live. So somebody wrote at the beginning, can you cover a little bit about the asset protection allowance? That's basically an allowance, not to get too far in the weeds, but there's a federal EFC that most schools, expected family contribution, that most schools go by to decide how much you can afford to pay for a year. That's what an EFC is. And there's an allowance on your non-retirement funds that they take off. This allowance has been going down and down and down. I think it's going to zero eventually, isn't it, Joe? I think it's eventually, I mean, it's less than $10,000. It's based on the age of the older parent. It's basically, if you're sitting on a bunch of money, it's going to be a blip, right? But it is going down. It's been going down for several years, basically.
Yeah, if you Google FAFSA EFC formula guide, it pops up a quick kind of overview PDF. And it's almost insulting they even have it anymore. I think for a married couple, 45 years old, they allow you to have $5,500.
Yeah.
And then anything above that, they start counting. So I just say assets for parents, they're going to look at around 5% of those assets towards the cost of college. Asset protection allowance has kind of gone away. We started doing this, a decade plus ago. A 45-year-old parent, they'd have something like a $50,000 protection allowance, but that's kind of gone away.
Yeah, that's long gone. So somebody asked, what if you don't owe the college all the money that's coming in? And that tends to happen sometimes with upperclassmen, like my kids moved off campus, right? So that big room and board expense is now being paid to an apartment complex. If you get more aid than you're paying the college, then they do send it out. That's how that works. I just thought that would be, and I thought people might want to hear that answer. How does this process differ for homeschool student or family? That's on the admission side. That's getting a little bit out of my sweet spot. I mean, I work with homeschool kids that get merit aid. The need-based, it doesn't matter, right? But on the merit side, they have a way, all these schools are different. And so a homeschool kid is different than all these different high schools and how they grade. There's some high schools that don't give grades. Have you worked with a family of a homeschool kid ever, Joe?
Yeah, and a lot of them have. I mean, the big thing there is how do you provide a transcript from an admission standpoint if it's not like standardized through the school? The homeschool alliances and the different homeschool, there's tens of thousands of people in there. So a lot of times they've got some different systems that they're using to facilitate that conversation. As far as like how rigorous was the what you taught them and how is that verified? So it's even more not one size fits all. But I think there are certainly schools that actually see a lot of value in homeschool students. So just depends on the school. And like the parents are of that homeschool, I find that are very involved and they've done the navigating to get through that process. But again, that is kind of on the independent education consultant side. So once you get out of having a high school counselor, independent education consultants really work in private practice to help navigate through that process. So that's really kind of more on the admission side. So
yeah,
financial aid should be the same.
Yeah. There was a question about your example with paying up front. Joseph, I would think that would matter school to school. To me, if you're going to pay all up front, that's not going to transfer to another university. I would pretty much say for sure. And if you're buying in and getting that discount, you're probably in. But just like anything that you do financially, you read the fine print, see what Syracuse was offering the family, and you go from there. That's not going to be every client that can afford to do that, right? That's a big chunk of money up front. But
I've had it happen twice in a lot of years. But in that case, though, it's there. Make sure there's assurances. It's to with the school direct and say, what happens if, he gets sick and has to come home junior year? Like, those type of things. Make sure it's in the contract.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That one's done. Yeah. Does CAP have the resource for available scholarships to apply for? Yes. A lot of merit scholarships that colleges offer are the students automatically considered as long as they get their admission app in by a certain date, but there are other ones to apply. We have a merit scholarship database in the advisor for each school. And actually when the family onboards or you onboard your family and you put in grades and test scores, it will automatically select the appropriate one. We're going to project, and then you can change it, but we're going to project it. So Joe's showing you that right now.
Yeah. So it's got them, whatever the school is, we're going to show you. Here's how they run their business. They use this method. Here's what it costs. And how do they do it financially? They're not great with need-based aid, but they're really good with scholarships. On average, kids get over 14,000 of non-need. And then here's the scholarship. This is what we actually got from this school, but you're going to see like every automatic scholarship is in here. So if we're projecting, we're going to show you, like, if you had these criteria, you're going to get this particular scholarship. So it's pretty, we have every scholarship for every school in the country. We'll give you a predictive outcome of what your scholarship dollars would be with about a 95% accuracy. So that is the ability to predict that and then go search for schools that meet your unique criteria. This is what everybody, when you show College Aid Pro, they're going to tell you, I didn't know a service like this existed, because we can go and now help you shop and find schools that give you the most scholarship, that are Forbes ranked within a day's drive, the whole thing. So, and that it probably brings us to a close. I'm sure there's some other questions, but in general, the partnership with Saving for College that we've created is, to help advisors get empowered with the tools that we have, and then providing discounts on the different solutions. So, our pricing is there. But if you're interested, we'll send out follow-up. I encourage you to book in to have a consultation if you're interested in exploring our what we do, how we do it, our training, everything. And I'll say three things. Firms interact with us in three different ways. Number one, if you're out there and saying, I want to add value for my clients, that's the Serve Get the Advisor workstation. You can help them through this process. If you've got kind of a little internet issue, if you've got like a junior advisor on your team, this is a great way for them to sink their teeth into something very unique around college. And then third, if you just want to have more of an outsourced solution, and when you have people like Peg and I be your surgeon in this area, we can do that too. But I think one of those three, that's what we would encourage, engage with this one way or another. Bring this in-house, or if you want to outsource it, have it just like you do estate planning. We can be those folks, that backstop for you as well. But again, we'll be in touch with follow-up and all that stuff. And
I just put the coupon code in the chat if anybody just wants to copy it, but it will be in your follow-up email along with slides.
Yep. So we'll get all that out, and I appreciate everybody's time today. Hopefully it's been valuable for you. And we look forward to connecting with you and talking with you. And again, encourage folks to, if you got questions on this stuff, you want to learn how we support advisors in this area, book a call. And now I think we'll talk to everybody real soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.